Okay, so get this, right?
Uh-huh.
We're diving into a case today
Okay.
where someone, get this, ordered their death online.
Oh, wow.
I know, super heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But stick with me,
Okay.
because this deep dive into what happened to actress Lindsey Pearlman
Right.
is going to take us through some seriously fascinating twists and turns.
That's true.
Right.
And you know what's especially disturbing is that
Yeah.
Lindsey's case isn't isolated.
Oh, really?
Her death, ruled a suicide from sodium nitrite toxicity,
Okay.
actually became part of a forensic case study in 2023.
Wow.
You see, there's this concerning rise
Uh-huh.
in people using this chemical easily bought online
Oh,
and their lives.
hold on. So before we even get into like the who or the what,
Right?
you're telling me this seemingly random chemical is like
Yeah.
the key to this whole thing,
It's a big part of it.
and anyone can just order it.
That's exactly what makes this case so significant.
Wow.
And frankly, terrifying. It raises all sorts of questions about online regulations
Yeah.
and the responsibility of these platforms.
Yeah.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
To understand the weight of this sodium nitrate factor,
Right.
we need to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
You might remember Lindsey from her roles in shows like Chicago Justice,
Oh, yeah.
General Hospital.
I loved her in those.
Exactly.
Yeah, she had this like amazing energy.
Right.
Always brought a smile to my face.
Exactly. But behind that bright personality,
Oh, really?
there was a hidden struggle with depression.
Wow.
And it was in February of 2022 that her story took a tragic turn.
So we've got a successful actress,
Yes.
a seemingly like out of nowhere suicide,
Right.
using this unusual chemical,
Right.
and a whole forensic investigation swirling around it.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Well, the initial missing person report from the LAPD stated that Lindsey was last seen on February 13th,
Okay.
but her husband, Vance Smith, later clarified
That the last anyone saw her was actually on the evening of February 15th.
so there's a 2-day gap
There is.
where no one knows what she was doing.
Correct. That's suspicious, right?
Certainly a detail that warrants a closer look.
Yeah, like people don't just vanish
Right.
for 48 hours before taking their own lives.
It's certainly a detail that warrants a closer look.
Yeah.
Was it simply miscommunication with the police?
Yeah.
Or is there something more to this discrepancy?
Right.
And how does this missing period connect to the sodium nitrate we talked about earlier?
This is where I start to feel like an armchair detective.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got these conflicting dates,
Uh-huh.
this mystery chemical,
Right.
and a missing persons case turned tragic.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, on the morning of February 18th,
Uh-huh.
Lindsey's body was found in her car
Okay.
on Franklin Avenue,
Okay.
not far from the popular Runyon Canyon hiking area
Oh, yeah.
in Los Angeles.
I know that area.
So imagine this serene spot, usually associated with breathtaking views,
Right.
becoming the scene of such a tragedy.
Man, that's eerie.
It is.
You think maybe she chose that location because of its, like, peaceful vibe?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the psychology of location choice in suicide cases.
Okay.
Was it a place of comfort for her?
Right.
Or was there a deeper meaning behind choosing this spot?
Okay, I'm totally hooked now. But before we get too deep into, like, analyzing locations,
Sure.
I need more details.
Okay.
What did the scene look like?
Well, according to reports, her body was found wrapped in a blanket,
Oh, wow.
and there were pills scattered throughout the car.
Okay.
This, combined with the sodium nitrate, points to a deliberate and planned act.
Wow.
And chillingly, suicide notes were found both at her home and in the car.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
So we've got premeditation, a potentially symbolic location,
Right.
and these notes.
Yes.
What do the notes say?
That's a great question. And one that the forensic experts were undoubtedly interested in.
Right.
Unfortunately, the content of those notes hasn't been made public.
Ugh, that's frustrating.
I understand.
It feels like a crucial piece of the puzzle is missing.
It is, but even without knowing the exact words,
Yeah.
the fact that she left notes in multiple locations suggests a level of intentionality
Right.
and a desire to communicate something.
You know, I'm starting to think that these notes, along with the location and that whole sodium nitrite thing, might hold the key to understanding this whole tragedy.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
They offer potential glimpses into her state of mind,
Yeah.
her thought process,
Yeah.
and perhaps even her reasons for choosing this particular path.
Okay, so we know she was struggling with depression,
We do.
but what specifically might she have been dealing with?
Right.
Was it something related to her career, her personal life, or maybe a combination of factors.
That's where the deep dive gets really interesting. And we're going to need to examine the details of Lindsey's life, both personal and professional.
Okay.
To see if we can uncover any clues.
Well, before we jump into all that,
sure,
I think it's important to remember that we're talking about a real person here.
Absolutely.
Someone with loved ones who are still grieving.
It's crucial to approach this with sensitivity and respect, while also acknowledging the complex realities of mental health and the devastating impact it can have.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about Lindsey Pearlman, the woman behind the headlines.
I like that.
What was she like? What kind of legacy did she leave behind?
Those who knew Lindsey describe her as incredibly warm and outgoing, a true ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
She had this infectious laugh and a genuine kindness that drew people to her.
Yeah. I remember seeing interviews with her.
Yeah.
And she just seems so down to earth and relatable.
Exactly.
Like very authentic.
And her friends and family have spoken about her incredible sense of humor.
Her quick wit. And her ability to find joy in the simple things.
It's hard to imagine someone so full of life. Struggling with such, inner turmoil.
It's a stark reminder that depression doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone regardless of their outward success or happiness.
Yeah.
And in Lindsey's case, it tragically highlights the importance of recognizing the signs. And seeking help.
Well, let's delve into her life a bit more.
Sure.
What can you tell us about her career? Was she content with where she was professionally, or were there any struggles she might have been facing in that area?
Lindsey was a talented actress with a diverse range of roles under her belt. She was dedicated to her craft and clearly loved what she did.
Yeah, but you know how it is in Hollywood. The pressure to succeed, the constant competition, the ups and downs of the industry.
It can take a toll.
It can take a toll on anyone.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
The entertainment industry can be incredibly demanding and unforgiving.
Sure.
So it's certainly worth exploring whether any professional challenges might have contributed to her struggles.
So did she ever talk about these pressures publicly? Did she ever hint at any difficulties she was facing in her career?
From what I've gathered, Lindsey kept her personal struggles private. She presented a positive and upbeat persona to the world, which, as we've discussed, is often the case with people battling depression.
It's tragic, really.
It is.
She was probably putting on a brave face while silently battling these inner demons.
And that's why it's so important to remember that what we see on the surface isn't always the whole story. We need to be more attuned to the subtle signs, the changes in behavior, the withdrawn nature that might indicate someone is struggling.
Back to her career. What kind of roles was she taking on in those final months?
Well, she had recurring roles in both Chicago Justice and General Hospital. Which are pretty significant achievements in the television world.
Yeah, for sure.
So from a professional standpoint, things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if her career was seemingly on track, what else could have been going on in her life that might have contributed to her tragic decision?
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
Were there any personal stressors, relationship issues, or financial burdens that might have played a role?
Yeah, good point. We often focus on the professional aspects of a person's life. Especially when it comes to someone in the public eye. But personal struggles can be just as, if not more, impactful.
Absolutely. And while we don't have access to those intimate details of Lindsey's life, it's crucial to consider all possibilities. Perhaps there were underlying issues that we're not aware of, things that contributed to her emotional state in those final days.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces.
It is.
You have some of the information, but without that complete picture, it's hard to fully understand the situation.
Precisely. But even with those missing pieces, we can still try to piece together what we know and look for patterns, connections, and potential explanations.
All right, so let's go back to that location where she was found. You mentioned earlier that it might hold some significance.
Yes.
Can we unpack that a bit more?
Absolutely. Remember Franklin Avenue? Especially the stretch near Runyon Canyon. Has this interesting duality. On one hand, you have the quiet residential street, a place where you might go to escape the noise and chaos of the city.
Right. And on the other hand, you have Runyon Canyon itself.
You got it.
Like a symbol of ambition.
Yeah.
A place where people go to push themselves physically and mentally.
Exactly.
And she was found right in between those two contrasting landscapes. Yes, it's almost as if the location itself reflects the internal conflict she might have been experiencing.
It's a really powerful image.
You know, you're right. It's like this physical representation of the struggle between wanting peace and quiet and feeling the pressure to achieve and succeed.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if she was drawn to that location because it somehow mirrored her own internal state.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces might fit together.
Right.
The sodium nitrite, the location, the notes, her career, her personal life.
Yeah.
It's like a web of interconnected factors that ultimately led to this tragedy.
And while we might never fully untangle that web,
right,
we can at least try to understand the individual strands and what they might tell us about Lindsey's story.
Okay, so we've touched upon her career,
right,
the location, and the conflicting reports about when she was last seen. What about the reactions to her death? How did people in the entertainment industry respond?
Lindsey's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood.
Yeah.
There is an outpouring of grief and tributes from her colleagues who remembered her talent, her kindness, her infectious energy.
Right.
It was a stark reminder of the hidden struggles that many people face, even in an industry that often projects an image of glamour and success.
Did this, collective mourning lead to any, tangible changes within the industry, like increased awareness of mental health issues or more support systems for those who are struggling?
It definitely sparked a much-needed conversation about mental health in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
Organizations like the Actors Fund saw an increase in calls and requests for support, indicating that people were starting to take mental health more seriously.
That's encouraging, but is it enough?
That's a great question.
It seems like it often takes a tragedy like this to really shake things up.
You're right. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
But Lindsey's story has undoubtedly had a lasting impact. It's forced people to confront the realities of mental health in a high-pressure industry.
Right.
And to recognize that behind the smiles and the red carpets, there are real people with real struggles.
I hope her legacy continues to push for positive change.
Me too.
And that more resources become available to those who need them.
Absolutely.
It's a shame that it often takes a loss like this to spark action.
It is a shame.
Right.
But we have to remember that even in the darkest of moments, there can be glimmers of hope.
Okay.
Lindsey's story has served as a wake-up call for the entertainment industry and beyond, reminding us that mental health matters, that seeking help is a sign of strength, and that we need to support each other through difficult times.
Well, I'm glad that something positive has come out of this tragedy.
Me too.
It's just so sad that it had to come at such a high cost.
It is a tragic loss, and we can't forget that.
Yeah.
But we can also honor Lindsey's memory by continuing the conversation about mental health.
Right.
By breaking down the stigma. Yeah. And by encouraging those who are struggling to reach out for help.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Lindsey's career, her personal life, the location where she was found, the reactions to her death, and the ongoing conversation about mental health in the entertainment industry.
I think we've done a good overview.
But there's still one crucial element we need to revisit.
Okay.
The sodium nitrite factor.
That's right.
It's what makes this case so unique and so disturbing.
And so relevant, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that this whole time.
Yeah.
It's chilling to know that something so easily accessible online could be used in such a tragic way.
Absolutely.
And I'm still curious about that forensic case study you mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah, let's delve into that now.
Okay.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle. Not just for understanding Lindsey's case, but for grasping the broader implications of this disturbing trend.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in.
Let's do it.
What can you tell us about the case study and why Lindsey's case was included?
Well, the study published in the Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine focused on the alarming rise in suicides using sodium nitrite. Lindsey's case was one of several that were examined to understand the patterns, the motivations, and the accessibility of this chemical.
So they were basically trying to figure out why people were choosing this method.
Exactly.
And how they were getting their hands on it.
Exactly.
What they found was incredibly concerning.
It is. Sodium nitrite is readily available online.
Oh, wow.
Often marketed for legitimate purposes like curing meat.
Hold on. So you're telling me anyone can just go online and order a chemical?
Yes.
That can be lethal?
Yes.
That's terrifying.
It is terrifying, and it highlights a massive gap in online regulations.
Right.
And the need for increased awareness about the dangers of this substance.
Okay. I'm starting to see why Lindsey's case was so important to this study.
Yeah.
It's not just about her individual tragedy, but about a much larger issue that's affecting countless people.
Precisely.
Right.
And the researchers hoped that by analyzing cases like Lindsey's, they could shed light on this disturbing trend and potentially contribute to preventative measures.
So what kind of preventative measures are we talking about?
Well, there are several approaches.
Okay.
First and foremost, we need to raise awareness about the dangers of sodium nitrite and its accessibility online.
Yeah, I bet most people have no idea.
Probably not.
That something so dangerous could be just a few clicks away.
Exactly. We need to educate the public, especially young people, about the risks associated with certain online activities and the importance of critical thinking when navigating the internet.
So it's not just about restricting access to the substance itself.
It's not just about that.
But about empowering individuals to make informed decisions and recognize potential dangers.
You got it. And alongside public education, we need to implement stricter regulations for online vendors who sell sodium nitrite.
You mean like verifying the identity?
Yes.
And the purpose of the buyer? Making sure it's not falling into the wrong hands?
Precisely. And potentially even requiring warnings about the potential dangers of misuse. Think of it like the warnings you see on cigarette packs.
Right.
A stark reminder of the potential consequences.
That makes sense. But it's not just about regulations and warnings, right?
It's not just about that.
We also need to address the underlying issue.
We do.
Of why people are resorting to such desperate measures in the first place.
Absolutely. This brings us back to the importance of mental health awareness, the need for accessible resources, and the creation of a supportive environment where people feel comfortable seeking help.
It's a multifaceted issue.
It is.
And it's going to take a concerted effort.
Right.
From individuals, communities, and policymakers to effectively address it.
It's not a simple fix.
Right.
But by recognizing the complexities and tackling the issue from multiple angles, we can hopefully prevent future tragedies like Lindsey's.
Well, this whole deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening, to say the least.
It has been a journey.
It started with the tragic loss of a talented actress and has led us down a path of uncovering a disturbing trend. And exploring the complexities of mental health in the digital age.
A lot to unpack, that's for sure.
And while Lindsey's story is heartbreaking,
it is.
It's also a powerful reminder of the importance of awareness, compassion, and action.
I agree.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one last piece of the puzzle I want to revisit. The suicide notes. We know they exist.
We do.
But we don't know their content.
Right. And unfortunately, that information hasn't been made public.
Well, can we at least, speculate? I mean, based on everything we've learned about Lindsey. Her struggles, her personality. Is there anything we can infer about what those notes might have said?
It's tempting to speculate. But without access to those notes. Anything we say would be pure conjecture.
I know. But I can't help but wonder if those notes hold the key to understanding her final decision.
It's possible. They might offer insights into her state of mind, her motivations, her final thoughts.
Well, for now, we'll have to live with the mystery.
It seems that way.
But maybe someday those notes will be released. And we'll finally have a glimpse into what was going through her mind in those final moments.
It's certainly a possibility. And if that day comes, it might provide some closure, some understanding, some peace for those who loved her.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yes, I think we've explored this story thoroughly. And with the sensitivity it deserves.
Before we sign off, is there anything else you want to add?
Just a reminder that Lindsey's story is a tragedy, but it can also be a catalyst for change. Let's honor her memory by being more aware more compassionate,
yeah,
and more supportive of each other.
Well said. And to our listeners,
yes,
thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
Remember, you're not alone.
You're not.
If you or someone you know is struggling,
right,
please reach out for help.
There are resources out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't hesitate to use them.
Okay, so I think that wraps it up for part 1.
Sounds good. So you're interested in Lindsey's career path?
Yeah, for sure.
What's fascinating here is that she didn't just jump into Hollywood. She had a solid foundation in theater first.
Oh, really?
She honed her skills on stage in Chicago before making the move to Los Angeles.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I bet that theater background gave her like a strong work ethic.
Yeah.
And a real like dedication to her craft.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not just about the glitz and glam, right?
Exactly. And it shows in the roles she took on. She wasn't afraid to tackle complex characters, both comedic and dramatic.
Yeah.
She brought a certain depth and authenticity to her performances that resonated with audiences.
Okay, so she's talented, dedicated, and making a name for herself in Hollywood.
She is.
What more could she ask for?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to remember the nature of the entertainment industry.
Right.
It's incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
With a constant pressure to book the next gig, stay relevant, and maintain a certain image.
Yeah. I can imagine that takes a toll. Especially for someone dealing with depression.
Absolutely.
And it's like a double whammy.
Exactly. And while we don't know the specifics of Lindsey's struggles, it's not hard to imagine how those pressures might have exacerbated her condition.
So did she ever talk about these pressures publicly? Did she ever hint at any, like, difficulties she was facing in her career?
From what I've gathered, Lindsey kept her personal struggles private.
Okay.
She presented a positive and upbeat persona to the world.
Right, which, as we've discussed, is often the case with people battling depression.
It's a common thing.
It's tragic, really.
It is.
She was probably putting on a brave face while silently battling these, like, inner demons.
And that's why it's so important to remember that what we see on the surface isn't always the whole story.
Yeah, that's very true.
We need to be more attuned to the subtle signs, the changes in behavior, the withdrawn nature that might indicate someone is struggling.
Okay, back to her career. Okay, what kind of roles was she taking on in those final months? Was she landing like big parts, or were things slowing down?
Well, she had recurring roles in both Chicago Justice and General Hospital, which are pretty significant achievements in the television world.
Oh, for sure.
So from a professional standpoint, things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Interesting.
So if her career was seemingly on track, what else could have been going on in her life that might have contributed to her tragic decision?
Were there like any personal stressors?
That's a great question.
Relationship issues or financial burdens?
It's possible.
That might have played a role.
Absolutely. And while we don't have access to those intimate details of Lindsey's life, it's crucial to consider all possibilities. Perhaps there were underlying issues that we're not aware of. Things that contributed to her emotional state in those final days.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle.
It is.
With missing pieces. You have some of the information, but without that complete picture, it's hard to like fully understand the situation.
Precisely. But even with those missing pieces, we can still try to piece together what we know, look for patterns, connections, and potential explanations.
Oh, so let's go back to that location where she was found.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that it might hold some significance.
It might.
Can we unpack that a bit more?
Absolutely. Oh, okay. Remember Franklin Avenue, especially the stretch near Runyon Canyon, has this interesting duality.
Good.
On one hand, you have the quiet residential street, a place where you might go to escape the noise and chaos of the city.
And on the other hand, you have Runyon Canyon itself.
You got it.
Like a symbol of ambition. A place where people go to push themselves physically and mentally.
Exactly.
And she was found right in between those two contrasting landscapes.
Right in the middle.
It's almost as if the location itself reflects the internal conflict she might have been experiencing.
It's a really powerful image, isn't it?
You know, you're right.
Yeah.
It's like this physical representation of the struggle between wanting peace and quiet and feeling the pressure to achieve and succeed.
It makes you wonder if she was drawn to that location because it somehow mirrored her own internal state.
It's like we're looking for clues, right?
Yeah.
This like physical environment.
Yeah.
Trying to understand her mental state.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces might fit together.
Right.
The sodium nitrite, the location, the notes, her career, her personal life.
It's a puzzle with a lot of pieces.
It's like a web of interconnected factors that ultimately led to this tragedy.
And while we might never fully untangle that web, we can at least try to understand the individual strands and what they might tell us about Lindsey's story.
Okay, so we've touched upon her career, the location, and the conflicting reports about when she was last seen. What about the reactions to her death?
Okay.
How did people in the entertainment industry respond?
Well, Lindsey's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood.
I bet.
There was an outpouring of grief and tributes from her colleagues who remembered her talent, her kindness, and her infectious energy.
It seemed like she had a lot of friends.
It seems so.
Yeah.
It was a stark reminder of the hidden struggles that many people face, even in an industry that often projects an image of glamour and success.
Did this, collective mourning lead to any, tangible changes within the industry?
Good question.
Like increased awareness of mental health issues?
Yeah.
Or more support systems for those who are struggling?
It definitely sparked a much-needed conversation about mental health in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
Organizations like the Actors Fund saw an increase in calls and requests for support, indicating that people were starting to take mental health more seriously.
That's encouraging, but is it enough?
That's a great question.
It seems like it often takes a tragedy like this to really shake things up.
You're right, and that's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
But Lindsey's story has undoubtedly had a lasting impact.
Okay.
It's forced people to confront the realities of mental health in a high-pressure industry.
Right.
And to recognize that behind the smiles and the red carpets, there are real people with real struggles.
I hope her legacy continues to push for positive change.
Me too.
And that more resources become available to those who need them.
I think that'd be wonderful.
It's a shame that it often takes a loss like this to spark action.
It is a shame, but we have to remember that even in the darkest of moments, there can be glimmers of hope.
Okay.
Lindsey's story has served as a wake-up call for the entertainment industry and beyond, reminding us that mental health matters, that seeking help is a sign of strength. And that we need to support each other through difficult times.
Well, I'm glad that something positive has come out of this tragedy.
Me too.
It's just so sad that it had to come at such a high cost.
It is a tragic loss, and we can't forget that.
Yeah.
But we can also honor Lindsey's memory by continuing the conversation about mental health.
Right, yeah.
By breaking down the stigma and by encouraging those who are struggling to reach out for help.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Lindsey's career, her personal life, the location where she was found, the reactions to her death, and the ongoing conversation about mental health in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I think it's been a good overview.
But there's still one crucial element we need to revisit.
Okay, which is that?
The sodium nitrite factor.
Yes, that's right.
It's what makes this case so unique and so disturbing.
And so relevant, unfortunately.
It's strange to think that something as seemingly ordinary as sodium nitrite, a chemical used in food preservation, could become like a tool for such tragedy.
Right, yeah.
It makes the whole situation feel even more unsettling.
What's striking is the contrast, you know? You have this everyday substance, something you might even have in your own kitchen, suddenly transformed into something so sinister.
Right.
It really speaks to that duality of objects and how their purpose can be twisted.
It's like a dark magic trick.
Right, yeah.
You think you know what something is, what it's for,
and
then bam, it takes on this whole other meaning.
And that unexpectedness, that ease of access, that's what makes this trend so alarming. I mean, imagine it's as easy as ordering takeout. That's how readily available sodium nitrite is online.
Wow.
It really underscores the need for greater awareness and stricter regulations.
It's terrifying to think that someone struggling with suicidal thoughts could stumble upon this chemical.
Right.
This quick and seemingly painless solution.
Yeah.
Without fully grasping the consequences.
And that's why that forensic case study is so crucial.
Okay.
By examining cases like Lindsey's, researchers are trying to understand the motivations, behind choosing this method, the online pathways that lead people to it, the potential warning signs that might indicate someone is at risk.
Well, it's not just about Lindsey's story, as tragic as it is.
It's not.
But about preventing future tragedies.
Right, exactly.
Using her case as like a springboard for change, greater awareness, better safety measures online.
Exactly. It's about understanding the broader implications, the societal and technological factors that contribute to this disturbing trend.
Right, and recognizing that this isn't just like an isolated issue.
It's not.
It's like a reflection of a larger mental health crisis that we need to address.
Absolutely.
You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is that sense of contrast we talked about earlier, the duality of the location where Lindsey was found.
Right.
The seemingly ordinary nature of sodium nitrite.
Yeah.
Even the contrast between, like, her public persona and her private struggles.
It's a recurring theme, isn't it?
It is.
And I think it speaks to the complexity of the human experience, you know, the hidden depths that we all carry within us.
Right.
We often try to make sense of things, to categorize and define. But sometimes the answers lie in those, like, gray areas, those spaces where light and darkness collide.
It's like there's a whole other world operating beneath the surface.
Right.
A world of thoughts, emotions, experiences that we might not be privy to.
Exactly.
And Lindsey's story, in a way, forces us to confront that, like, hidden world.
It challenges our assumptions, disrupts our perceptions, and reminds us that even in the brightest of lights, shadows can lurk.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I'm left with this, like, lingering sense of sadness, of course.
Of course.
But also a sense of urgency. We can't let Lindsey's story just, like, fade into the background.
We can't.
We have to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Push for change and make a real difference.
I agree.
Right.
We have a responsibility not just to remember Lindsey, but to learn from her story.
Right.
And to use it as a catalyst for creating a world where mental health is prioritized.
Yeah.
Where resources are readily available. And where no one has to suffer in silence.
It's a call to action for sure. And for our listeners out there,
yes.
I hope this deep dive has done more than just, like, inform you. I hope it sparks something within you.
Yeah.
A sense of empathy.
Right.
A desire to understand, a willingness to, like, make a difference in your own way.
Even the smallest actions can ripple outward, creating a wave of positive change.
Beautifully said. And remember, in a world that often feels overwhelming and isolating, connection is key.
Yes.
Reaching out, sharing our stories, supporting each other.
Those are the things that can truly make a difference.
So as we sign off, let's carry Lindsey's memory with us.
Yes.
Not as a symbol of tragedy, but as a reminder of the importance of kindness, compassion, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Yes.
Take care of yourselves and each other.